From the very beginning, we envisioned this event to be a beacon of growth and transformation, the Black Manosphere Conclave. Across 3 days, Black men will converge to retool themselves for the 21st century. We'll forge powerful business alliances, refine styles, amplify tech skills, and exchange life lessons unique to the Black male experience. Motivate, evolve, enlighten, and thrive. This, gentlemen, is the Black Manosphere Conclave. Welcome to the elite.
Men get tired. We get tired. God, we get tired. And don't nobody give a damn. The folks you think will give a damn don't give a damn. Sometimes your kids don't even give a damn. And in the face of such hurt, heartbreak, rejection, confusion, a lot of men are just out here lost. And waking up every day is a miracle. Some people go to sleep and will be all right. We're not waking up.
The whole idea of children being born out of that institution of marriage is very damaging. And I think a lot of times we don't see it until that person grows up and experiences some of those things where when you go to pull on those things that you need from that union, it's not there.
I had a lot of great role models that happened to be men to teach me what, my angel of a mother was not going to be able to do.
I'm coaching people that's in their 60s and they're learning. And they said, well, how did you get this wisdom at such a young age? And I honestly believe it was my father.
She just did what she had to do. She was a single mother before it became even popular, so.
How do you feel about it being popular?
I think it's a sad state of affairs.
If you say, what is the ideal? I think the ideal is being raised by a two-parent family.
I talk about black men, white men, period, but mostly black men. How we've become second and third class citizens, especially when it comes to the lives of our children.
I think I learned a lot of things from my father.
So I think they pass on to me. I grew up without a father.
I didn't just spend a whole lot of time at Dwayne's house. His daddy was molding me.
I know commercials that last longer than my father.
Children from fatherless homes in this country, 5 times more likely to commit suicide than children who have a father in the home. 32 times more likely to run away. 20 times more likely to have a behavioral disorder. 14 times more likely to become sexually aggressive or commit rape. 10 times more likely to engage in drug abuse. It just breaks my heart. No heat, no judgment.
The woman will open up and say,
you know what, not having my father really is a problem, really is an issue. And I wish we could get more black women to just point out, wait a minute, it's not cool that your kids don't have their father. It's not cool that you didn't grow up with yours. It's not, I don't need no man. It's not fathers don't matter. It's not niggas ain't shit. It's actually we as a people, we as a culture, we as a community have to deal with each other. And in dealing with each other, if we're creating children, if we're having little innocent beings who only thing they know about themselves is what we present about ourselves. I don't know if that makes any sense to any of you guys. If you are a Jew and you know that you must be a doctor, a lawyer, or something like that, that matters. Your goal is higher. What you want to be in life is exalted. But if you think about what happens with us as black men, our goal in life is where? What do we have to look up to? Who do we have to look up to? Was our fathers impressive? Was our grandfathers impressive? It doesn't even matter what you say sometimes to your children. It's what you do. It's what you have. It's the presence you command. It's the maturity of how you deal with each other and deal with other people. And that's the biggest thing we need in the black community. Where does that start? To me, it's with fathers. If your man is confident, your man is proud. When your man is proud, he loves what he has. He protects what he has when he has these situations. And that's when you, as a woman, as a man, as a family, as a community, that's when we'll be better. When we actually care about each other. It starts with the fathers. It starts with the relationship and the children.
It's a hard thing to admit, but it's understandable why they would choose to go their own way. And that's what's scary, is there's actually a rational reason why they would do that.
Men going their own way. And you can think what you want about it, but this is a really big problem for women, for us, for our future, for families, for you to find a partner. If a population of good men are walking away because they're fed up with women.
If you're being told all your life that you are bad and wrong just for being a man, and that you have toxic masculinity for being a man, and that, you know, women, there's this famous expression that, you know, a woman needs a man just like a fish needs a bicycle. And that men are basically useless, and that men are terrible, and that, you know, women are superior.
Our society is very callous towards men. The only message most men hear in the world is that they're a bumbling buffoon. The TV shows are full of idiot men. Commercials show men as buffoons. The society is against them. All they hear about is what idiots men are.
It's the mass of women that are taking over the culture and representing women. They're loud, they're mean, they say they want equality. Why are they not protesting in the streets for the changing the laws for alimony or child support or child custody? Because they don't want equality, they want superiority.
The male gender has more of a slave state, and it's because men are now subjugated to the law and to women, and nobody really believes it except the men who go through, say, the court. But most men think that they're exempt from that until they end up in a bad situation.
So for a lot of the men, and a lot of them have gotten screwed over in terrible relationships and divorces, and gotten their kids taken away from them. So it's an understandable response.
In the United States of America, as a man, you can't speak up. I think most women tend to be very, I'm stereotyping, but they tend to be more collectivist. They tend to sort of be more in that socialist mindset. So I don't know that you're going to see a huge change. I think the change will have to come from men.
The lives of women will not change until the men get the opportunity to also examine and define and change their lives. In many ways, I sometimes think that the 20th century was the century where the women made all these massive changes, and the 21st century will be the changes that the men will make, partly in adaptation to the changes that the women have done.
And those men are doing something about it. They're saying, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm not getting married, or I'm divorced. I'm not gonna, they don't sit around just trying to live their life through women. They actually have lots of hobbies. They go out, they buy that land you were talking about. They're out there getting motorcycles. They're having a good time, and they're enjoying life without having to deal with the stress of the women and the society that tells them they have to have a woman in their life.
How would you feel? I mean, you know, you're not going to feel that attracted to a woman or care to be loving towards her or romantic towards her. So this men going their own way is a reaction to that. I really think it's a rational reaction to that. Men are finally like, hey, we've given you all you want. You know, you are equal in every way, and then you're still shaming us.
When my friends go, it was simple. When the ends low, switch the tempo. I got right, I got heart, I won't die, I'ma fight. I go down, then I strike. I go hard day and night, yeah. I go hard day and night. 1 to 1, no surprise. See the hate in their eyes. My brother's blood money bleed. I got the game in the squeeze. What would you do for some green? What would you do for some blues? Go pick and choose, the fam of the cheese. Some people not built like that. Some people get killed like that. Pressure like water, lights, mortgage, I'm paying that bills like that. Now I got kids like that. No wonder why I feel like that. Some people go to war for nothing. Me, I go to war for something.
Before there was the manosphere, I was. Before there was the internet, I was.
When the ends low, switch the tempo. I got right, I got heart, I won't die, I'ma fight. I go down, then I strike. I go hard day and night. Money on the line, keep calling. Money on the books, need all that. My kids, they'll be ballin'. Got a real bankroll, not for Instagram. My mama on the line, keep calling. Praying for me, know I need all that. Told me it's not about ballin'. Real blessed, but I'm still sinning, man. What would you do for a win? What would you do for your friends? What if this life is a foe? What if the dogs pretend? What if you rode to the end? What if you started again?
Fire! The kosher clinician.
All right, guys, we're going to get deep into it on tonight. We're going to be talking about black male trauma. And I had the great opportunity to talk to Black Ram here recently, guys. I had the opportunity to talk with Black Ram, and Black Ram has been dear when it comes down to talking about black male trauma and how trauma has impacted so many men on so many levels. We're going to have a good conversation on tonight, guys. Share this stream, donate to the channel, because black male trauma has led many of you men, or more or less led many of you men in very precarious predicaments. And we're going to talk about the trauma that black men go through and how black male trauma has led you guys to bad relationships, but also black male trauma has led you to the lack of having power. As you guys know, Black Ram is an OG, and his famous term was his therapeutic main. And also, Dr. T.S. Johnson have done a lot of seminal work on boys, men, and also in academia. And me being a licensed professional therapist also have counted the honor to talk about some of the nuances of male issues. Get your pens and paper ready, guys. I'm about to drop some fire for your mind on tonight. Let's do it. All right, guys, we're going to get deep into it. And thank you guys for tuning in on tonight as I'm about to drop some fire for your mind. This topic is dear to me, guys, because some of you men that are listening have been victims of black male trauma. Black male trauma is something that many don't talk about, many don't care about, and many don't aspire to discuss. Many men become shallows of themselves when they go through trauma. They become shallows of themselves. And because many times there's no one to help them work through their trauma, they become slaves in bad relationships, and they do or more or less exhibit behaviors that are counterintuitive to their character. This show's gonna be a good one, guys. I need you guys to share the stream and donate to the channel because, as you guys know, I am a licensed therapist. Putting these shows together take a lot of time. So if you believe in what I'm doing, donate to the channel, and we're going to get right into it. But the question is this: have you been through trauma as a man? We know that people tend to overuse the word trauma. So many people overuse the word trauma to justify bad behavior. And sometimes, guys, it's not necessarily trauma. Sometimes it's just bad decision making. But sometimes there's truth in the midst of error. And with so many boys being born in single parent homes, some of the men that have fathers abandoned them. Some of the men that have mothers kept them away from their fathers. Some of the men had mothers that made them men before their times and gave them names like Man-Man. And Man-Man was self-fulfilling prophecy consistent with parentification and spousification. And those are just clinical terms that are consistent with the lack of boundaries and where boys become enmeshed and there's no clear delineation between who's the parent and who's the child. And you guys will be surprised of what some of the things I've seen in practice, some of the things I saw when I worked in law enforcement. Enmeshment is real. Enmeshment means to be intertwined together. A person that has what's called individuation is just a fancy way of saying I'm an individual. I'm gonna tell you guys about I had a situation that happened years ago, and the woman and the son, it appears to be a son-husband situation, and the boy had his mom, the young man had his mother's name tattooed on his arm like they were lovers. So it basically said John Doe and Jane Doe, which I found weird. Because I'm like, why would a boy, a young man, have his mother's name? I can see they have your mom name tattooed, but you had your mom and your name tattooed together. And then to make it crazy, guys, to make it crazy, the mother had her son's name and her name on the back of a car. Can you imagine if a man had his daughter's name and his name tattooed on his arm like they were lovers? Or if the man had his name and his daughter's name plied together on the back of their license plate? People will say that's very incestuous. And I'm not saying it's incest, but it looks like incest. And it's weird. And some of that, guys, is a byproduct of trauma, unresolved trauma, and triggers that so many of these young boys have been going through. And we're going to get deep into it tonight. I had an opportunity to talk with Black Ram. It was a great show. Black Ram and I collaborated with Brother Oheen. And we talked about a lot of different things related to trauma. As you guys know, also I taught school in the past as well. And once again, some of you men are recipients of a traumatic past. It has shaped your reality to the point some of you men have gotten in bad relationships. You've compromised your power. You've taken bad deals in relationships. And because of trauma, you don't know your worth. You were violated by some men and women. It's made you hypersexual. Sometimes it's made you hyposexual. And it has confused you as it relates to manhood. I told you guys before in the past that manhood is a series of hills and valleys, victories and failures. A series of hills and valleys, victories and failures. We are born males, but we become men through our experiences. And the more you know what your worth is, then you won't continue to settle for bad deals, man. And that's why these conversations are so important. But we're going to get deep into it, guys, on tonight. Donate to the channel, please. And we're going to get deep into it on tonight. If you like what I'm doing, donate to the channel. And we're going to talk about the struggles that some of these young men are going through. Shout out to my man Salty Balls for the 10. Shout out to that brother. Shout out to Salty Balls, always showing love. And that's a deal, right? I appreciate it, man. That's a deal, right? Stream.
That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? Got 5 on it.
Fatherlessness, guys, is an epidemic. I had the opportunity to talk with Thomas Sotomayor. Go check out his movie on Amazon. But fatherlessness is an epidemic that's more profound in the black community. We live in a world, guys, where 304 culture is so prevalent that some of these women, I'm not saying all, but some of these women would rather have children like Ebony Williams without fathers instead of having children in the confines of a loving home. And it's a problem because fathers give boys identity. A father gives boys dignity. Guys, you want to donate to 7 Smalls. Cash out 7 Smalls. But fathers give boys dignity. But also fathers teach boys the lessons of manhood. And all too often, guys, the development of so many boys have been arrested because it's in a mother's nature to nurture her son. And because women do things based on their intrinsic nature, which is to nurture their sons, sometimes they arrest their development. Hence, you have the manifestation of man. I'm going to do a show called The Creation of Man. Because we got a lot of man-mans in the world. Their man causes a lot of chaos. And man causes a lot of chaos, guys. And it's crazy because if you deal with man, if you don't come to man correct, man will say this.
Yeah, put chain on the balls on my mom. Maybe bro, kill some of my mom, bro. Like, you look like gang. That's on my monkey gang. That's on my monkey gang. That's on my.
But man causes a lot of problems, guys. Donate to the channel. Shout out to Salty Balls as he's the #1 sponsor of the stream. If you guys like what I'm doing, donate. It's gonna be a good show. Y'all gonna enjoy this one. We got a good one coming up on tomorrow. Because it's going to make sense, guys. Some of you men, because of trauma, have become simps. Some of you men are simp makers, and some of you men are simp finders. The simp maker is the byproduct of a conscious simp. The simp maker sacrifices important masculine principles. You might ask the question, what do you mean by important masculine principles? Well, it's simple. When you stand on your principles as a man, your principles are consistent with your value system. The things that you value as a man never supersedes the feelings of a woman or the opinions of other men. You stand resolute regardless if them people stand with you or not. But when it comes down to relationships, guys, a simp, and it should be in the DSM-5, a simp sacrifices important masculine principles. It's normally in relationships, but also it can be with your mother, and it can also be with your daughters. Some of you men are daddy simps because you allow the feelings and the personalities of your daughters to compromise your power as a man. And that's a problem. Because see, manhood is unmovable. Manhood is unshakable. Manhood stands on its own merit. It doesn't flinch. It stands strong and resolute. It doesn't care about what others think. But the worst one is called the simp finder. And the simp finder is a byproduct of an unconscious simp. An unconscious simp is consistent with an unconscious pathology. A pathogen is anything that takes away or causes disease to the mind. The unconscious simp stands for he supplements, meaning he gives, irrational, meaning the behavior don't make sense, male patterns of behavior. He supplements irrational male patterns of behavior to women that don't respect him, women that don't honor him, women that don't pour into him, and women that see him like the young folks call a lick. The simp finder is a target because many women love simp finders. They're easy to find. They're very vulnerable. The simp finder is very, he's easy to manipulate. He gives all his resources and his time without asking for anything in return. That's the simp finder. And so many men are the byproducts of simp finders because they never have fathers who put or more or less instill hope and give them clarity and to give them knowledge. Fatherlessness is so dangerous to the point that men are checking out. 33% of men are now considered to be virgins. 33% of men are virgins, which is unfortunate. And what happens with fatherlessness, guys, when boys don't have structure and order, and when boys are constantly going through trauma, what happens is this: they can develop the next thing called personality disorders. Personality disorders are consistent with conduct disorder. Conduct disorder, which is very maladaptive, from conduct disorder, or opposition defiant disorder. And the one after the age 18 is called antisocial personality disorder. And what you guys see manifest in Man and Raekwon is sometimes antisocial personality disorder.
Oh, yeah, put chain on them. Balls on my mom. They be broken balls. Kill some of my mom. Bro, they back me look like gang. That's on my monkey. Gang. That's on my monkey. Gang. That's on my monkey.
Raekwon and Man would say, on my mama, it's on my mama. Because a lot of these boys, guys, don't have no self-discipline. They don't have any discipline. And some of these boys, guys, they'll take your lives if they can't get what they want. And that's a problem. That's a problem. Guys, only one person has donated to the channel. If you guys like what I'm doing, donate to this channel, please. Donate to the channel, please. because these shows are not free. I do these shows to inspire and to educate you good men on mental health issues and some of the things that you've been struggling with. As you guys know, as a licensed professional, most therapists can make anywhere from $100 to $150 an hour. So I'm growing. I'm going to start my own practice at some point. And so if you guys like what I'm doing, donate to the channel. Thank you to Salty Balls thus far. But fatherlessness, personality disorders, what you guys see manifest many times in prison are boys that had ODD, and sometimes they were overdiagnosed. But ODD, NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, and sometimes borderline personality disorder, it happens, guys, when boys are the victims of trauma. They're the victims of environments that's not consistent to their well-being. And so Teddy Pendergrass said it better than me. Until you address what your issue is, guys, you will continue to struggle. And Teddy said, you can't hide from yourself. You can't hide from yourself. It's gonna be done for tomorrow. So you gotta reap what you sow. Yeah, Teddy said, you can't hide from yourself. And some of you men that are listening on tonight are victims of trauma. You mask your trauma. You try to hide it. You try to minimize your trauma. You try to justify your trauma. Some of you men had your innocence taken by grown women, and it made you hypersexual. You learned to be with other women, and some would say it's a badge of honor. But see, the problem is, guys, it caused you to develop behaviors that are not consistent with healthy development. Now, I know we live in a world that says that boys gonna be boys, but when you got grown men, grown women taking the innocence of a young boy, that's what happened to R. Kelly. R. Kelly's innocence was taken, and he became hypersexual and adapted an alternate ego. And that's a problem, guys. And so fatherlessness leads to personality disorders. Personality disorders leads to recidivism. Recidivism is a byproduct of lawlessness or incarceration. Recidivism is mean they create crimes over and over and over again. From there, it goes into incarceration. Felice Johnson was a victim of a lot of this stuff. And then from incarceration, it's a byproduct of poverty. Some of these young boys grow up in homes, guys, that are broken. They grow up in chaotic schools and chaotic homes. And sometimes their moms are so wicked and ignorant, they put them sons in bad situations where their sons sometimes go out to make money for their mothers, and sometimes it's illegal activities. Shout out to my man KP from KC5. He says simp service all throughout the gynocracy, willing to die for Keisha and use VAG. You're right, brother. Salute, Kosher. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir. You are right. And they'll creep for Keisha all day long. They love the creep. They love the creep. They love the creep. Yeah, they love the creep, man. They love the creep for Keisha. They'll creep for Keisha. But guys, we're going to get deep into it. I appreciate the two sponsors so far, Salty Balls and KP from KC5. And we're going to get deep into it on tonight. So let me get up the thing, guys. And if you guys haven't got your tickets at the Black Manosphere Conclave, go check it out, because we're about to go down the rabbit hole in a minute. Because fatherlessness and black male trauma goes hand in hand. And that poverty many times, guys, is due to parental trauma. We're going to talk about that as well. And that's called vicarious trauma. Go get your tickets, guys, from the Black Manosphere Conclave. We're about to get into it.
Welcome to Machismo TV, the ultimate destination for modern men seeking to upgrade their lifestyle. Subscribe to Machismo TV and Saul T-Balls. We stream daily from 12 midnight to 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the best male-centric content. Highlight reels without reviewing or providing any editorial bias to the content. We have done so much, with so little for so long, we are now qualified to do anything, with nothing.
I'm going to ask some of you esteemed men in the audience if you've dealt with trauma. And in the meantime, shout out to my man Kevin White for the 5. Kevin White, you are dynamite for the $5 cash app. Thank you, Kevin White. I appreciate it. So you gotta reap what you sow. Thank you, Kevin White, for the 5. I appreciate it. But I'm going to ask you guys a question. If you've been a victim of trauma as a black man, I want you to hit 1, and then I want you to talk about the trauma that you've dealt with, because some of you men are reformed Pookies. Some of you men are reformed Raekwons and Man-Mans. But I want you guys to talk about it in the chat, and as I'm downloading this information, we're going to get deep into it, guys. Had a good stream with Black Ram. And so, yeah, so the guys that have been impacted by trauma, I need you to hit 1. And we're going to get deep into it, guys. All right, so Sean Cameron say he's been impacted. Sean 6 say he's been impacted as well. And guys, what happens a lot of times, fatherlessness, incarceration, and poverty, some of you men are victims of the trauma of your parents, and that's called vicarious trauma. I want you kind gentlemen to put the type of trauma that's impacted you and what it did to you in a negative way. The type of trauma that impacted you and what it did to you guys in a negative way. Tell your story. If you guys want me to read the information, you can donate to the channel. But we're going to get deep into it, guys, because vicarious trauma is real. And vicarious trauma simply means this. It means I'm going to live through the experience of the pain of my mother or my father. When you go through vicarious trauma, you take on some of the behaviors of your parents, their struggles, their belief systems. The problem with many boys that are simps, especially the unconscious simp, is that they over-identify with their mothers. They don't identify with masculine virtues or masculine principles, because the only thing that's important is what mama said. And it's nothing wrong with loving mama. It's nothing wrong with respecting mama. But it's a bad thing, guys, when you over-identify with your mama and you don't identify with masculine virtues or masculine principles. That's a problem. And that's why simps tend to attack men in this space, because they value their mamas more than they value masculinity, because they're living through the traumas of their mothers. Guys, these kind of shows are educational shows. Now, I know you guys love entertainment, but sometimes I have to teach, because I can do goofy shows. I can do shows talking about nonsense. But it's time to educate our men because some of you guys want to get wives at some point. But you can't get a wife until you understand what your traumas are. You can't get a wife until you understand what your traumas are and how those traumas have impacted you in a negative way. So that's why these shows are so important, guys. Black male trauma is real. Will Frank said that I cannot form a normal relationship, right? And guys, if you guys want to donate to the channel, I will read out comments. If you want to donate to the channel, I'll read out comments. But I want to show you guys something. Let me share the screen real quick. Hold on. I think that's it. Let me show you guys something. And you guys can see what I'm talking about. Shout out to Black Ram. And we're going to break this thing down, guys. Hold on. Okay, what's going on? All right, give me 1 minute.
House in the car, bro. That's all.
Man, for just one hit, huh? Woo,
Yeah, this
you can have it all. My
crazy, bro.
So she's like, you know, I
yeah, because what are you doing?
You hold your legs up, Ninja? Or you gonna be on your belly, Ninja? Or you gonna go toot your ass up on the belly on the motherfucking bed, brother? I mean, this shit don't look right, bro. It's certain shit just off limits, man. You know what I mean? Anyway, you toot that ass up for that, bro. It ain't right, bro. It ain't right, bro. It's like, no, man, we got to have limits, man. So the posterior, in my opinion,
one of the good things about Black Ram talked about the traumas of growing up in the inner city. He talked about it. He talks about the traumas of growing up in the inner city and how those traumas impacted him in a negative way as a man. And I'm going to speed this thing up a little bit. I don't want to distract
you. Baker, Wasp, Freeze, and Boss Dundada. We were all sure you all have seen this. I'm a little young. It's top notch for sure. We got to talk about it. So let's get into this, man. And this is a couple of disclaimers. This is not to say that everybody's mama is a bad mother. We have very hardworking mothers, man. Mothers who did the best that they could. So it's not every mother. However, there are mamas who really did a number on their sons. And the reason why their sons are acting the way they act is...
If some of you men were impacted by your mothers, I need you to hit 1. If you want me to read out your comment, send a donation. I will read it out. But how have your mothers impacted you guys in a negative way? Talk about in the chat how some of your mothers have impacted you guys in a negative way, because some of you guys, I'm not going to say you hate women, and there are some that do hate women, but talk about how your mothers have impacted you in a negative way.
Is because of mama. And one of the biggest contributor to who Thuggo is his mama. And I don't have pictures now, but I'm sure you all have seen this. Some little young African-American male, some little young black male, 2 earrings in his ear, fake tattoos and jewelry on, trying to dress him up like your favorite rapper. His mother did that to him. His mother.
And Black Ram is right. I've seen it. Some of these women set these boys up for self-fulfilling prophecy. They put earrings on these little boys early on. They put bandanas on their head. They put them in J's. And some of these mothers create Raekwon and Man. But see, when Raekwon and Man get 18 and they can't control them, now they want to control or call the fathers back. Because when Raekwon and Man say, oh, my mama, now they don't know how to deal with them. And some of you men were Raekwon and Man in the past.
Oh, yeah, put chain on them. Balls on my mom. They be broken balls. Kill some of my mom.
Bro,
They back me look like
Gang, that's on my monkey. Gang, that's on my monkey. Gang, that's on my monkey.
mother wants him to grow up and be hood. His mother encourages him to curse. His mama did that. His impulsivity, why he can't control himself or doesn't have any self-discipline, a lot of the times is because his mama did that to them. Because mama is impulsive. Mama doesn't have any self-discipline. Mama acts out. You notice that you see one character trait in Thuggo that's rampant, that we see everywhere.
And guys, that goes back to a condition called over-identification. That's a condition called over-identification. That means they identify with their mothers instead of identifying with masculine principles. They only see things through the lens of their mother. They don't see things through the lens of masculinity.
Is that he cannot control his anger or his temper to save his life. Everything is a problem. Everywhere is a problem. Where did he get that from? He got it from his mother. My goodness. I like what you're saying, MPI. You remember the song? I forgot who did that song. And the song was called On My Mama. I got some clips to show.
Yeah, a lot of them say on my
yeah, put chain on them. Balls on my mom. They be broken balls. Kill some of my mom. They back me look like
Gang, that's on my monkey. Gang, that's on my monkey. Gang, that's on my monkey.
And we're going to talk about it. And a lot of the reasons why a lot of these chicks are hoes is because their mama. How many times have you heard a woman's mother or grandmother say this? As long as you got a PUS, you know the rest, you should never be what? Broke. Why is it that every mother, at least in the so-called community, has taught her daughter that, and all of them know that saying? So you're definitely saying that, hey, you should be a thought. Not that you should have a husband and raise children. Not that you should keep yourself to marriage and, you know, the importance of family. None of that. None of that. It's you should never be broke because you got a PUS, you know the rest. Not get married, not the sanctity of marriage, but because you got a P between your legs, you shouldn't be broke. Mama taught the daughter that. So when they become HOs, we look around for causes. Well, the number one cause is right there in the house with mama doing that. So let's get some clips. I sent the link to our special guest, so he should be here shortly. Got a few clips to show, and we'll talk about it. Here we go with the first one.
I have a question. Who protects children from their mothers? The single mothers who do it on their own and are always getting accolades for playing both mom and dad. Who do those children run to when they are being beat down physically, emotionally, and spiritually by their mother? A mother who is bitter and resentful.
And guys, you know and I know that a mother cannot raise a boy into manhood. Mothers cannot raise boys into manhood. They cannot raise a boy into manhood. They can maintain him into manhood, but they can't raise him into manhood. And because of that, because so many men have unconscious pathologies, instead of them thinking they're not dealing with stuff, like Teddy Pendergrass said, guys, they are hiding from themselves. You can't hide from yourself. Go and make up for tomorrow. So you gotta reap what you sow. Some of these boys are hiding from themselves, guys. They're hiding from themselves because they are broken. And growing up in bad environments without the guidance of their fathers that got them to this current place that they're in.
And holds her children responsible for her subpar life.
All right, we got to stop it right there. I've heard a lot of incidences where the mother really doesn't like the child because the child reminds the mother of that father.
Wow.
Who she no longer likes, and treats that son, and sometimes daughter, but treats that son accordingly, that is traumatic and that is abusive. Let's keep this. Finish this out. Here we go.
A mother who is jealous of the youth and vibrancy of her daughter, or
don't we see that all the time? Mama wants to compete with the daughter for male attention. I've known mothers and daughters going to the same damn club. Now, I don't know about you, but
are you serious?
I'm dead serious, brother. Dead serious. I knew a chick who her mother, I'm sorry. I had a girl that I was dealing with who her best friend's mother would go to the club with them. Knew the bouncers, got the discounts, and all of that. Mama did that. Mama in the club twerking right next to her daughter, man. I bullshit you not. But that is the community, right? Let's get some more.
who is angry because her son looks just like the man that she loved that didn't stay. Who protects them from her? A mother who made bad life choices and now she's resentful because her children are doing all of the things that she felt that she couldn't do because of them. A mother who never held her child, told them that she loved them and made them feel like affection was.
And God, that goes back to what I said earlier. That goes back to what I said earlier, guys, to parental trauma. And that parental trauma is transmitted to their children, sadly. Fatherlessness, personality disorders, recidivism, incarceration, poverty, and parental trauma. They all go hand in hand.
Was a privilege. A mother who didn't believe her daughter when she said that she was touched. A mother who didn't believe her son when he said that her new boyfriend was abusing him. Who do these?
Yeah, this sister is correct. This sister is correct. When I worked in law enforcement, guys, some of these boys were the byproducts of all types of abuse, whether it be physical, mental, or these boys being touched. But many times we minimize the trauma of black men and black males, and that's a problem. Guys, donate to the channel. Share this stream if you don't have any money to share. Share the stream, guys. If you don't have money, just share it. Because there are some young men that need to hear this story, to hear this stream. Some of you young men are broken, and you don't know why you are broken. And sadly, guys, shows like these don't get a lot of views, sadly. These are the shows that should be getting big numbers, but they don't get a lot of views, sadly. But if you don't have the money to donate to the channel, just share the stream, guys, because some men need to hear the story about black male trauma.
Children run to escape the toxicity of this mother? Is it the father who the mom pushed away and has now poisoned the minds of her children against him? Where do those kids run to? Why don't we hear more about those stories?
My goodness. Milkman, the trucker said the worst TV mom ever seen was We Baby Mama on The Wire. I remember that. And listen, that's some real life shit. That's some real life shit. Well, we have our special guests in the building knocking at the door. Let me see who this is. Who at my door? Who at our door? Oh, he on a real perspective for today. Special surprise guest. Here he is.
What's up? What's up, dog? What's going on,
What's happening, dear brother?
Man,
good to see you, man.
Well, shout out to my man Oheen. My famous war cries, bring it to you live from the greatest state in the union, the Tar Heel State.
Let's go.
Home of Michael Jordan and some of the best barbecue in the world, man. So it's an honor to be on the show tonight, man. You know, I look forward to dropping some fire for your mind and talking about this topic that's so pertinent, Black Ram, in a time when black male heteronormative masculinity is not only under attack, but it appears that the traumas and the struggles of black men are often minimized under the frame of liberal dogmas and liberal indoctrination. So I look forward to the conversation, and I look forward to imparting some insight to the young men that are listening, and hopefully trying to find some level of resolution as we strive to move forward in a culture that doesn't really care about the needs and the traumas and the pains and the aspirations of black men.
Absolutely, dear brother. Appreciate that. So I have some clips to show, and we're going to talk about it. And I have some questions.
Shout out to my man, Sean 06. He said, great show. Glad you're addressing this. Some of these moms use that Jedi mind trick. Thank you, Coach. Thank you, Sean. I appreciate it, brother. And And that's a
bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? Got 5 on it.
Questions for you specifically, just as a clinician, not necessarily professional stuff, but just in conversation. MPI says, my sister told me, my mom told her, you talk to too many men. You need to pick one. Wow, that's a good advice. That's good advice right there, MPI. Good advice. Afro Man, salute, brother. Oh, MPI says Memphis, Tennessee barbecue. Yeah, I can't lie. I've been to Memphis, man. That barbecue is awesome. Went to Gus's in Tennessee and Memphis, man. That was just the most amazing chicken I've ever had. But anyway, Afro Man says, notice the nice guy finished last in America, but he finishes first outside the West, and that is a fact.
And God, that's one of the reasons why I advocate for men to get passports. I told you, men, there are 7 steps that a man must go through in order to become optimized. Once you get your passport, it will remove you or remove the illusion and delusion of what a woman is. Traveling abroad will give you a different experience and a better experience with the understanding that women abroad are not perfect. Women abroad got issues too. But you got a better chance of getting a traditional woman abroad than here in America. Hold tight.
So, Coach, I got a few clips that I'm going to show, man,
Yes,
and we're going to talk about it, because what we don't tend to focus on at all, Harley, is that the trauma that poor parenting causes, and poor parenting from the mothers. We always looking at the fathers, absentee fathers or abusive fathers. They put that all over the media for decades and decades and decades. In fact, you can barely find any TV show that hasn't shown, and in the past at least, some sort of male causing trauma to his family in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
But we never look at mama causing drama and trauma. That's not to say, again, everybody's mother, but let me tell you, it is a lot. So I'm going to play about 3 clips. I got quite a few clips, but I'm going to play about 3 clips.
Go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
And we'll talk about it. And you can stop me at any time. But here we go. Here are a few clips right here.
Pops is sharing a little something personal here. I remember around about 40 years ago when I went to go get married for the first time with the woman that I had children with. And me, my mother, and my sister were driving down the street on the way to my wedding. Well, my mother and sister, strong feminists, didn't like my mother-in-law. And so they were threatening to beat my mother, or soon to become mother-in-law, up at the wedding. 2 single sisters, feminists, staunch feminists. They were gonna beat up my mother-in-law at the wedding. They didn't care anything about me, how I felt. That was supposed to be my...
But remember, guys, these are the same women that want you to protect them and to protect and save a dying black community. These are the same women, guys. These are the same women. But they threatened to beat this man's mother-in-law up just because there was a difference of opinion.
Special day. And that's what I'm telling you about these women. They get wishy-washy on us, especially these feminists, and they don't care what they do to destroy a home. That was my home they were going to destroy, my future home. And they didn't even care. This is my mother and my sister. Wow. I had to go off to get them to calm down. I'm telling you, don't let these women control the narrative in your life. They don't know what they want, where they're going, what they're doing, and you have to provide the stability as a man. You have to provide the strength, and you have to provide the direction. And any woman that doesn't want to get on your program, get rid of her. Leave her single.
My goodness,
single.
Single. MPI says, correction, my mom said that in jealousy. So his mother and his sister, man, wanted to ruin his day. And we have this thing in us, man, where mama can do no wrong. But that does sound like a hot ghetto mess. And we know where we come from, fellas. That's not something that we are shocked necessarily to hear. But it's just sad how a man had to really push toward his mother and his sister to keep them from ruining his special day. If you guys want to give comments on that, you can. If not, we can go to the next clip. I'm just trying to paint a picture here of mothers. And shout out real quick to Andrew Baker for the Cash App donation. And also shout out to Jeremy for sponsoring the show. Where you at, brother Jeremy? Let me get this for you, man, for sponsoring the show. I got to do this, man. Let me get this this two-step in for you. Here you go, brother. Appreciate you, brother Jeremy, for your sponsorship show. I mean, sir, I had to get that two-step on Sunday for you in church.
And
Appreciate that, brother.
I gotta give a shout out to Andrew Baker too, even though I'm mad at him because he left me. But thank you anyway.
And kosherclinician, if you can put your Cash App info in the I believe you have a wrench inside the chat as well.
Okay, I'll do that, brother. Thank you, sir.
So any comment on what this brother had experienced from his mama?
Well, listen. Yeah, it's daunting to say the least. It's all the narrative remains the same. Black Ram. Vicarious trauma is real. Some of it is real. Some of it is imagined. And what I mean by imagined is due to negative socialization, where women tend to associate the traumas of other women. They incorporate those traumas or inculcate those traumas into their life. And then they continue to say this negative narrative that black men are bad, black men are abusive, black men or whatever. And it's funny what the brother was saying, because in the clinical world, there's a theoretical framework called the feminist theory lens.
Really?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Wait, slow down just a second, man. I've never heard this before. Slow down for a second.
Right.
You're gonna have to explain to me what this is. What is it called again, dear brother?
Yeah. So it's called the feminist theory lens, right? And I call it. So I call it lens because that's how people look through the oppression or the perceived oppression of women. But it's called feminist theory. It's a known framework, intervention framework in the clinical world. And basically what it says, Black Ram and Oheen, is that misogyny, patriarchy, men have oppressed women. And
some of you men have been conditioned. Some of you men have been conditioned to minimize what your worth is for the sake of a community that never celebrated you. I know some of you men want to save the black community. You can go save it by yourself, respectfully. But it's not your responsibility to save a community that does not respect malehood and masculinity. You cannot reward bad behavior. You can't reward bad behavior. And some of you men make good choices. Some of you good men did the right thing, and you will be a fool to waste your time, money, and resources on communities that don't respect you or honor you as a man. So if you want to go save the community, go ahead and waste your time. I've been there, and I've tried to do it myself several times, working with young black men, working with young black boys, and working with some of these families. They don't respect structure. They don't respect order. There is no community where you don't respect and honor your men. You respect your men on the front end. Your men take care of you on the back end. You go in communities where the communities are healthy. There's a healthy respect for the men and the boys, because the boys and the men are the warrior class. But see, some of you men have been conditioned just to give your resources and your time away for nothing. And I promise you, that same community that you pledge to protect, go to jail for a little bit, go to jail for a while, and see how much the black community come to assist you. My background is very diverse, guys. I worked in law enforcement for years. I taught school for years. And these communities and some of these women in these communities are very dysfunctional. They got with these worthless black men, the black men that they all love, that thug love, and they talk about it all the time. And they look past noble, hardworking, some blue-collar black men. Now, we know there's some white-collar pookies, too. We know there's some white-collar men that run game a lot of women, too. But by and large, the archetype is the inner-city man. So if you guys want to go and save it, by all means do it. But you can't have a strong community, one, without God, and number two, until you respect the men in your community. You can't have it, because it's not consistent with systems theory. Systems theory says that the part is not greater than the whole. But sadly, many of our women, not all, shout out to all our good sisters, they see themselves outside of the black collective, and they put their needs first. So you can't have no black community where you got women putting their needs and their wants first against the greater whole of the black collector. So if you want to waste your time trying to damn save it, by all means, go save it. But the men that understand what their worth is knows this. Black men create communities themselves. You create the community that you want. Your seed can get with other women from other countries, whether it be from Africa, the continent of Africa, the continent of Asia, the continent of South America, and you can start a whole community under a patriarchy, a healthy patriarchy. But you would be a fool to deal with some of these broken women, because some of these women need therapy themselves. They don't respect the process. They don't respect the work. They want something for nothing, and some of these broken men too. So if you want to save it, by all means, have fun. Go save it.
Basically, they use that as an innovative model to more or less assert and give women power as it relates to their perceived oppression by men and the practice of male misogyny, to say the least. And so these feminists often have been indoctrinated to see men/black men as the enemies of their oppression, the enemies of their pain. That's how powerful the indoctrination is in many of these schools. And I went to a great school. Let me shout out to UNC Chapel Hill. I love the school. I love what it meant to me. I love what it gave me. So I love my alma mater. But at the same time, there were things I agreed with, but there were things I didn't agree with, because the worldview was not always congruent, Black Graham, to my worldview as a black traditional male. And so it's normal to see these women more or less perpetuate these negative biases and negative stereotypes towards black men, because they have not been conditioned to understand.
Black male trauma, guys, is manifest due something called feminist theory. Feminist theory supports that women have been oppressed by men, they have been reduced by men, and so black male trauma and feminist theory says that men are the perpetrators of DV, IPV, intimate partner violence. Men are the perpetrators of all crimes, violent crimes, and we know that's not true, because IPV, intimate partner violence, is bidirectional. Women attack men just as much. When it comes down to sexual crimes, women they commit sexual crimes similar. When it comes down to cheating, women cheat almost as much as men. But see, feminist theory lens is a Eurocentric construct that says that men are what's wrong with the world many times, and they use concepts and ideals to empower women based on perception, either be perceived or actual oppression. But see, the problem with that, you got innocent men that have not done anything, and now these men are being oppressed themselves. Innocent young men that have never done anything, they are being oppressed themselves.
Understand and or respect black men, and some of it is vicarious trauma for bad relationships or prior relationships, and these women more or less tend to identify. I call it, in the clinical world, we call it transference. So they begin to transfer some of their negative traumas, their negative pain, and almost in like a negative group therapy where they all talk together, and then what happens? Then every black man that they see is through the lens of negativity. So I'm not surprised by it at all. And if people want to donate Black Graham, it's Cash App $7 Smalls, SEVENTH SMALLS, 7th Smalls, if they want to donate. So $7 Smalls, you can put it in, or I'll put it in the back while we're talking, and we'll go from there. So yeah.
Okay, appreciate that. Any words you want to say, Oheen, about that brother, about his mother and sister?
Absolutely. My thing is, he's saying that you have to be in control of your household, which is absolutely correct.
Right.
But the question is, why would you want the hardship and the headache of individuals who do not want to be under your protection and your care? Right. So if these individuals are obviously giving you pushback, then that is not a situation that is going to be conducive to your well-being. So why even stay in it? And this is why Blue Book Gentlemen and the Passport Bros exist, because people are opting out of being stressed out. You know, life is stressful enough without having somebody who's working against you. So that's how I feel about it.
That is a fact. I got more clips to show, more clips. Some of them I'm just going to play in succession, and then some of them I'll stop and we'll talk about it.
You want to know what you just did? You created a very traumatic
core memory for that child. You saw fit to run over that stuff that you bought that child rather than just having a conversation with him. But you chose to destroy the things that you got him instead. So I want you to remember something. When you and your kids get older, because y'all have no choice but to, and they're contemplating whether or not to take care of you or to put you in a nursing home, just remember that that core memory that you created for that child, and maybe other core memories that you created for your other kids, are going to be sitting in the back of their minds while they're considering if they want to take care of you or not. And you better.
That is a core memory. Appreciate you again, brother Jeremy. Says appreciate you catching a live while working in Maui. Man, that sounds beautiful, brother. Appreciate you. But that is a terrible thing to do to a child. Very traumatic, man. My goodness. I'm gonna keep going. We can talk about all of these in a second. But they don't think in the moment because she's undisciplined and herself. She's impulsive.
And see, guys, there was a time where our women were raised. There was a time, guys, our women were raised to be women of valor. There was a time where our women were raised to be virtuous. But we don't have that anymore because where other women try to hold women accountable, they get attacked. So you cannot save a community that's in denial. You cannot save a community that won't take self-accountability. You can't save a community that lacks self-awareness. You cannot save a community that has not been taught or raised to respect order, structure, and masculinity. Because see, when you try to tell the typical modern woman on how to act, they don't listen to you. They'll tell you to shut up.
Shut up, kosher. Shut up. Shut up, kosher. Take it back. Shut up. Shut up, kosher. Shut up.
Herself, she doesn't see the damage that she's doing. The mother that the trauma that the mothers cause when they
Bro,
in their children.
I'm 26. My mom kept me away from my dad for 26 years. You know what kept me away from him? My mom told me that my dad said I was a mistake and kept me away from my father. Every time, this been looking for me since I was a kid.
Yeah.
He's been looking for me. I finally talked to my dad. He's a good dude. My mom told me my dad has not paid child support since I was a kid. I finally meet this. He has envelopes full of shit proof showing he's been paying child support.
Damn.
My mom calls me. What you doing, baby? What's going on? I'm at my dad's house. What the fuck you doing at the house? Didn't I say don't discuss family business? My dad bust through the door and snatched the phone. I was trying to, no. He's like, hello? Put my son back on the phone. No, it's my son too. What do you want? Put my son back on the phone. And my dad loses it. Going in on my mom. And I'm listening to my mom. All that slapping, abuse, and beating me up, choking me when I'm on the floor, beating me with belts, wrapping hangers around other hangers. My mom turned into a 2-year-old little girl when my dad started talking to her. She talked to me like my entire.
That's vicarious trauma, guys. And that vicarious trauma sometimes is a byproduct of personality disorders. But guys, sadly, that's what happens where you got a 304 culture and where people don't take mental health serious. And sadly, guys, some of my worst clients, sadly, are people that look just like me because they don't take the process serious.
Their life. He's yelling on the phone. You mad because I left you.
Talk to him like a bitch his entire life. Damn. Let's finish this out.
And I didn't want to be with you no more. And you kept my son away from me as a weapon. Whenever my mom would get pissed off by my dad or my sister's dad, she would say, "We'll never see your son again if you disrespect."
The sad truth of this is that this happens more often than people are willing to admit. These toxic single moms are destroying America.
And it's more baby mamas than single moms. I believe it's baby mamas. Normally, it's a succinct difference. Not saying it can be single moms, but normally it's baby mamas. It's normally baby mamas because they got a history of having children by multiple men.
100%.
My goodness, man. My goodness. I got some more clips to show, and we'll talk about it. I'll show 1 or 2 more, and we'll talk about it. Let me get this one. I'll play this one, then we'll talk about it and get the rest. Here we go.
Yes,
countries. I'm just the first to admit it.
Shout out to my man Sir Tice for the $9 super sticker. Appreciate it, Sir Tice. And Sir Tice says, salute, gents. And that's a deal, right? I appreciate it, Sir Tice. Thank you, sir.
That's a bet, right? That's
Appreciate
a
it,
deal,
Sir
right?
Tice.
That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? Got 5 on it.
They taught us to hate ourselves and love their wealth. We hate the black family. They try to say black men hate black women. We don't hate black women. We just want one who will cooperate with us and actually just love us a little bit. Oh, y'all don't love yourselves. Yeah, because we come from women who beat you down because of their traumas. Oh, somebody put a trauma on them. A lot of them try to do what the fuck they want to do, and it ended up bad. And instead of saying, I did that bullshit, you don't got to do that. They encourage other women to do the bullshit too.
And guys, that's called transference. Listen, you can't create a community, guys, that's already broken. The black community was strong, and it didn't become strong overnight. The elements to a strong black community in the past was God, community, fathers and children and mothers, and then you had strong nations. But see, now you have none of that. You can't take new wine and put into old wineskin. When we reject traditionalism and reject the things that kept our ancestors strong, what happens after that, guys, is that, like Teddy said, you can't hide from yourself, and on that, you're going to reap what you sow. You can't hide from yourself. You're going to wake up for tomorrow, so you got to reap what you sow. And what you guys are seeing now, you're seeing a lot of these women reaping what they sowed. They sold to the whirlwind, and they sold to the world, and they reaped the whirlwind. And they're reaping what they sowed. And they made bad choices. They got with some of these worthless men. They chose swag over substance. And some of these men, a percentage of them did lie to them. But see, if women were virtuous like their grandmothers and valued their bodies like women years ago, then we would have these problems. But you can't create a community, guys, that is devoid of awareness, devoid of values. Because see, right now, our culture doesn't value family or tradition. It values nonsense. So you can't make a community outside of the order and respect of the black men in that said community. You can't do it. You can pray for it, but consistent with systems theory, it's called systems theory. You cannot have a community without the structure and the order of the black man because the value system is broken. And we're not talking about the Raekwons and the man-mans of the world. We're talking about the hard-working, blue-collar black brothers that are not perfect men, but are striving to do the right thing. And that's the problem. Shout out to my man Sean Campbell for the cash out. Sean Campbell always showing love. I appreciate it, Sean Campbell. Man, Sean Campbell hit me with a hitter, man. Sean Campbell just hit me, guys, with a hitter. Good brother. Number love and respect for Sean Campbell. Sean Campbell, you are the #1 sponsor of this stream, and I'm forever grateful for Sean Campbell. It's great men like Sean Campbell that inspire me to do these shows, because these shows are not free. It takes a lot of time and energy. And guys, don't let good men like Sean Campbell always donate. Some of you guys donate to the channel. Y'all like the content, you listen, but you never donate to the channel. So thank God for the #1 sponsor of the stream on tonight, Sean Campbell, Sir Tice, Salty Balls, and the other brother. I appreciate it. And Sean Campbell, you are the #1 sponsor of this stream, brother. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? Got 5 on it.
goodness, man. And it leads to just more and more and more trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma, from keeping sons from their father, from sabotaging relationships, to babying the boys, to not allowing the boys to grow up and actually be men, to catering. I mean, sometimes they do a little bit too much loving, where they stifle your growth. Sometimes they do too much discipline, where you don't get it's all over the place, man. And this has long-term effects on the psyche of Black men, what Black single mothers do to their sons. Any thoughts, Kosher?
Yeah, so first of all, I want to send a special shout out to Lim Hendricks for that $15 cash app. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Thank you, Lim Hendricks. And thank you, Black Ram, for allowing me to facilitate this conversation. But yeah. So this is very multifaceted, Black Ram, to say the least. So let's get back to the core and the crux of what we're talking about. And the core and the crux of what we're talking about, Black Ram, not only is it predicated in the trauma of the mother, but also it's
So Sean Campbell, thank you, sir, for sending me that cash out. I appreciate it, Sean Campbell. He said, just sent you a cash out, raised by a single mother. And Sean, I want you to come up later if you want to, man. You don't have to show your face. I want you to tell your story and how this trauma impacted you if you want to. If not, I understand. Raised by a single mother, caused me to be a perfectionist, super responsible, codependent, have codependent, have to ought to should. I did not know about standards or boundaries until my late 30s. My heart goes out to you, brother. My heart goes out to you, Sean Campbell, but such is life and such is the struggles of many young brothers, man. Thank you, Sean Campbell, man, for your kindness, and thank you for always showing love to the channel. Thank you, Sean Campbell. Thank you, sir.
Dedicated in the trauma of the son. Now let's truncate this thing, Black Ram, and add some clarity to it. What we're seeing, some of it is rebellion due to liberal indoctrination. Some of it is also, Black Ram, arrested development. Eric Erickson, Black Ram, talked about at least 8 or 9 stages of psychosocial development. One of the stages is called trust versus mistrust. That's the very infantile stage. So a person, Black Ram, can be chronologically, because some click when he said she was acting like a 2-year-old. If a child has been impacted due to trauma, and trauma can come in many forms, acute trauma is one major trauma, but chronic trauma is a bevy of different traumas. So when you think about trust versus mistrust, Black Ram, some of these women got into relationships due to maybe even being abused sexually by a man, which in essence made them hypersexual. And so in order to get the validation from men, they got in relationships to get validation because they got hypersexual. They need to get that dopamine rush. But they never really healed from the formative years when they were going through the trust and mistrust. Sexual abuse can make some women and men become hyposexual, meaning they're very rigid when it comes down to sex. But back to point, I think it's a combination of rebellion part, but also vicarious trauma of the mothers, vicarious trauma of their own individuality, but also, Black Ram, I think what it is it's a combination of these women transmitting their pain to their children in the clinical world. We call it displaced aggression. Yeah. Displaced aggression is
So displaced aggression is something you men have done to the women in your lives, but displaced aggression also is what your mothers have done to you, and sometimes your fathers because of their pain. That's what happened to Fleece Johnson. Fleece Johnson became the bully warrior because his dad had displaced aggression. We're going to talk about that on tomorrow. We're going to have a great show on tomorrow that's going to segue into this. But Fleece Johnson became the bully warrior because of the displaced aggression of his father towards him.
Cognitive distortion, but also minimization is a cognitive distortion. They minimize the importance of the children. They minimize the importance of the men in their lives.
Yeah.
But what they do on their end, Black Ram, is called magnification. But they magnify their own self-worth, and we call that self-aggrandizement, when they put themselves as the pillar of the situation, the relationship.
Now let me speak to that, because this is where that matriarchal big mama idea comes from. So in my family, no one talks about my grandfather, his sacrifices and what he did.
Yes, sir.
How he made a way. It was always about.
And Black Ram is right. That's called the minimization of masculinity. What happens, guys, when that happens is that men tend to over-identify with their mothers. They over-identify with their mothers, and they don't identify with male values or male virtues. And that leads to black male trauma. They over-identify. They don't identify with male virtues of value because they don't see the importance in it. And so, guys, that's why that's a problem. Shout out to my man, Sir Hill Speaks. Shout out to him. Shout out to that good young brother. And shout out to all the other brothers. But that's over-identification. That's why so many of you men compromise your power in relationships. Because you over-identify with your mothers instead of identifying with masculine virtues and masculine principles.
Grandmama.
About grandmama, right.
So nobody's important to the situation but mama, grandmama, big mama and them.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else gets minimized while she gets maximized.
Right.
And let me ask you a quick question, Oheen, as well. We'll come back to you, Kosher. In your time, Brother Oheen, as a teacher in the school system in New York, did you see a difference between the boys who had both parents versus the boys who only had their mothers? Did you see any difference? Oheen?
Absolutely. Pretty much what you find is that the young boys that were raised in a single household, which is predominantly the woman being the head of the single family household, you find they're more emotional. They are less in control of.
The guys, once again, as you guys know, I worked in the school system. I taught school, but also I worked in the prison system. When I worked in the prison system, once again, guys, I saw a lot of recidivism. Fatherlessness leads to personality disorders. Personality disorders lead to recidivism. It leads to incarceration due to poverty and parental trauma, which is called vicarious trauma, meaning you live through the traumas of your parents. And that's right, because I saw it, guys, and I saw it happen to a lot of men. Hold tight.
Use and beating me up.
Black Ram and add some clarity to it. What we're seeing, some of it is rebellion due
sacrifices and what he did.
Yes, sir.
How
Right.
he made a way. It was always about grandmama.
About grandmama, right.
So nobody's important to the situation but mama, grandmama, big mama and them. Everybody else gets minimized while she gets maximized.
Right.
And let me ask you a quick question, Oheen, as well. We'll come back to you, Kosher. In your time, Brother Oheen, as a teacher in the school system in New York, did you see a difference between the boys who had both parents versus the boys who only had their mothers? Did you see any difference, Oheen?
Absolutely. Pretty much what you find is that the young boys that were raised in a single household, which is predominantly the woman being the head of the single family household, you find they're more emotional. They are less in control of their feelings. They are quick to have temper tantrums, to lash out, because they're modeling the behavior of the mother. They see the mother exhibiting those behaviors, and then they follow suit. They emulate her, right? Whereas you see the boys that were raised with a mother and a father, they have a balance, right? They're more functional. They're tempered. Their behavior is, they're more responsible, things like that, because you need both dynamics. You need the nurturing from your mother, but you need the discipline from your father. And when both of those things come together, they work perfectly. So of course, the kids that had both of their parents were respectful, and they were courteous, and they exhibited a lot of positive behavior. But the kids that were most likely in a single parent home, they had very negative behaviors. So that's what I've noticed.
And what Oheen is talking about is a very nuanced thought process, Black Graham. I think I've talked about it before in the past, but I call it the trifecta. And in the end, Black Graham, it leads to something called projection. So introjection means a person takes on the ideas of the person in their life. And more boys tend to introject because it's when they're going through their childhood stage. So if a boy's around a woman, boys tend to introject, meaning they think or absorb in their psyche based on how the mother is teaching them. That introjection turns to what's called, Black Ram, introjection turns to internalization. They begin to internalize some of the mechanisms that were taught to them by their mothers. And like Oheen said, in a healthy environment, the mothers nurture the boys, but the fathers push the boys through the right of manhood. The mother, because of her genetic predisposition, has a proclivity to nurture that child. But the man understands that masculinity is a series of hills and valleys, victories and failures. And so, man, we are born males, but we become men through our experiences. But the boys never get a chance to internalize masculine core values like what Oheen is talking about, because they tend to internalize the negative machinations of their mother. So it goes from introjection to internalization. And then you have what's called now the simp culture, which turns to identification. They identify with all things that look like women. And so
and that's what we were talking about earlier, guys. A lot of men over-identify. That's why they have no standards. You cannot have a society, you cannot have a culture or generation where the men are constantly over-identifying with the feelings of the women instead of identifying with masculine principles and masculine virtues so that they can protect themselves and protect their women as well. The warrior class is based on men leading and protecting and the women following suit. But that's the problem, guys. We don't have it because we have a very gynocentric culture.
They see any vestige of anything associated with masculinity, Black Ram. The last caveat is called projection. They project the anger taught to them by their mothers onto other masculine men. But in other masculine cultures, they embrace what masculine men talk about. So you got what's called the unconscious simp. The unconscious simp stands for he supplements irrational male patterns of behavior. I'm going to say it again. The unconscious simp, he supplements irrational male patterns of behavior. I call it a negative feedback loop. So it's irrational for a man to give his best to an unworthy woman. It's irrational for a man to fall in love with a woman that does not respect him. That's irrational. But the other one is called the conscious pathology of masculine. It's called they sacrifice important masculine principle. That's the conscious simp. The conscious simp knows what he's doing is wrong, but he's not disciplined. So he tend to fall under the spell of a woman, and it keeps him also in a state of arrested development. But what it does, and
some of you men fall under the spell of women, and some of you men are simps because some of you men have been spellbound.
minimizes the importance of his purpose as a man. And that's why these conversations are so important, because I see it all the time when I do sessions with clients. So many men compromise their power instead of understanding that you have more power than you realize when you utilize it. You got more power than you realize it. But if you don't utilize it, it doesn't work. It's just like faith. Faith don't work unless you use it. So you got to use it.
Wow.
Yes.
Excellent. Black Sang says nothing but facts from that, brother. Appreciate you, Black Sang. East Coast Kev says 3 of the baddest mofos around. Appreciate you, East Coast Kev, for saying that, dear brother. In a sense, from what you're saying, brother Oheen, and what you're saying, brother Kosher Clinician, is also what I've theorized, that Thuggo really doesn't have a chance. Let's look at Thuggo for a moment, right? First of all, his mother chose the worst character traits in a man and of a man to get pregnant by. So there might be a genetic component. I'm not sure, that whole nature-nurture debate. But you have a lady who chooses the worst possible father with the worst character traits, because we know that Keisha and them, and I'm talking about Keisha and them from the 80s, Keisha and them from the 90s who have these children, they chose the worst mate possible because they like the thuggism.
Right.
Now they go have Thuggo's baby. And he goes off to jail, or something happens to him where he's no longer in the land of the living. So then she raises this boy with all of her impulsivity, all of her materialism, all of her feminist ideology, men ain't shit. So she gives her son these ideals. So now we wonder why he's wearing the tight pants and acting really weird and doesn't have any self-control or discipline. Now here's the thing. You got all of these challenges, plus systematic racism, white supremacy, neighborhood wars and fights, poor nutrition, poor access to healthcare, no access to mental health care, and you unleash these type of human beings into the world. what do you expect but pure chaos? What do you expect? So he doesn't even have a chance, fellas. No, I mean, he has no chance. He has too many things he has to fight.
Right.
His absentee father, who ain't no good because he's locked up because that's the type of father his mother chose, from the terrible parenting to his terrible neighborhood. And then, most likely, he doesn't have the discipline to go to bed on.
Everything Black Ram is talking about is true. As therapists, guys, we look at something called the locus. The locus is an assessment that we use to determine the mental impact of a child. Adults use, cow locus. The locus is the level of care utilization system for adults, but the cow locus is a child adolescence level of care utilization system. What the locus looks at, guys, it's a metric that looks at the risk factors and protective factors, recovery environment. We use that assessment to determine the potential outcomes of that child. If that cow locus is high, then that's a sign that child is more at risk for recidivism and more at risk for negative behavior. And when you have families that have fathers, strong masculine fathers that know how to lead and check bad behavior of their women, the children have a greater chance of being better. Now listen, having a two-parent family is not a guarantee that a child won't go do well. But we're talking about the odds. The odds are a lot better in a two-parent intact home versus a single-parent home. Now listen, some will say, well, I grew up in a two-parent home, one-parent home, and I did okay, and I know other kids that grew up in a two-parent home and they didn't do well. You're talking about outliers. That outlier that does well in a single-parent home sometimes have fathers to shape them. And that's called resiliency theory. Those kids just end up being resilient. But that's the exception. That's not the rules. So don't ever confuse the exception for the rule. Hold tight.
Time to eat healthy meals, and that affects your cognitive ability. So you're not going to really get good grades. You're not going to get any kind of tutoring, and then you are in a culture where they actually think that if you are educated, that's a bad thing.
Right.
If you actually can read and pronounce words properly, that's actually a bad thing. What chance does Thuggo have? And I would like to say Thuggo doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell when you really look at all the things that's thrown at him. And this is one of the reasons why I don't put down Thuggo too much, because you're asking for the impossible. Let me get these super chats and I'm gonna get your feedback. Andrew Beck says, "Salute, kings. I have met many grown men who are lied to by their deadbeat mothers. Now, most of the guys don't speak to their mothers anymore because of it. Having a good father and mother is key to a child's success." And brother Andrew Baker, that is a fact. Thank you for that, dear brother. Charles Keys Sr., he says, "Passport bros, making passports, son and daughters." Definitely, bro. Definitely, brother. Appreciate that, brother Charles. Big Meech. Let me get Big Meech. Big Meech, good to see you, dear brother. Big Meech says, "Greetings and salutations, brothers. B-Dub are the agents of chaos. B-Dub's lives aren't normal unless there's chaos and anarchy." And of course, they put that onto their children as well. So are you guys in agreement that Thuggo really doesn't have a chance? What you think about that, brother Culture, and brother Oheen?
Yeah, that's an excellent point on Black Ram. So let me say this: you're correct. In general, in theory, you're 100% correct. But there are outliers. But those outliers are that they're deviations from the mean. But the average says or postulates that they don't have a chance. Now, some go through something Black Ram called resiliency theory. It basically means that when many things are thrown against some people rise up above their circumstances in spite of. But that's the exception to the rule. That's not the rule. There are some that supersede that, but all those negative risk factors. So as a therapist, we look at things called protective factors. Then we look at what's called risk factors. But then we truncate that Black Ram in an assessment model called the cow locus. The cow locus stands for the child adolescence level of care utilization system. And we look at recovery factors. We look at risk factors. We look at recovery environment. We look at underlying other health issues as well. And some of these kids, Black Ram, they grow up in these caustic environments. Thuggo really is a victim of a personality disorder due to trauma. And personality disorders, Black Ram, a lot of times can lead to what's called opposition defiant disorder, which leads to conduct disorder, which leads to, once they turn 21, antisocial personality disorder. But some of it, Black Ram, can also lead to narcissistic personality disorder because NPD is more prevalent in men than women. And so some of the manifestations that you see now in society is a result of trauma and behaviors that had never been dealt with. And because many times you don't have a lot of Black male therapists like myself that are masculine, you know, Black folks don't really go to therapy because the therapists they go to many times, they look at things through the lens of the feminist theory.
Yes.
And that's why they don't go to it, man.
And that makes sense because you can't get your needs addressed there. Right. So, Oheen, you agree or disagree? Can we really blame Thuggo because of all of the things that he has to endure? What are your thoughts on that, Oheen?
Well, I think definitely, because while, you know, they have had some very traumatic experiences, I think what I can say to that is welcome to the damn club, right? Right. We've all had, you know, experiences. There's no excuse for, you know, once you get past a certain age, you have to be responsible for your own behavior. You can't, like, it's just like when these guys, you know, they go out here and they commit these heinous acts. You know, they murder somebody, they injure somebody, they rob, you know, whatever they do. And they try to go into the court and their rationale is, I hit that old lady over the head, or I pushed that old man down the steps, or I murdered that taxi driver late that night because my childhood was hard. But nobody cares, like, because yeah, your childhood was hard, but you knew shooting that man in the back of the head was wrong. You knew pushing that person down the steps was wrong. So yeah, you know, as far as having rough childhoods, we've all had them. We've all had rough experiences, but you, at some point, you have to take responsibility. I think a lot of what Thuggo tries to do is they try to use past experiences as a crutch for failure, because it's easy to be a failure. It's easy to lose, but it's hard to develop the mindset to win. And I think a lot of people have grown comfortable with losing, and they're comfortable in that state. So they try to use past actions as a reason for the behavior that they're committing currently, right? So that's how I feel about it anyway.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me get some more clips, and we're going to talk about it and see if we can come up with some possible solutions, man, to some of these things. Let me get a few clips, and we'll talk about it. Here we go.
That by fourth grade, nearly 80% of Black boys fail to meet state reading standards. And of all of the data collected by the state, Black boys trailed Black girls by the widest margin. Another article goes on to elaborate on this, stating that only 10% of 8th grade Black boys in the United States are proficient in reading. I repeat, only 10% of 8th grade Black boys in the U.S. are proficient in reading. In urban areas like...
I got to stop that, man. That is profound. Right. We're going to talk about it, but damn, I just need you brothers to think about what he just said. Only 10% of boys in 8th grade. Go ahead.
I just got to give a shout out to the United States government. They have worked hard. They have spent trillions of dollars. They have flooded the communities with crack cocaine, you know, basically created all kinds of, you know, dysfunction. They have done, you know, that COINTELPRO, that MK Ultra. They have spent trillions of dollars to ensure this, because we all, listen, everybody here is over 30. I'm pretty sure y'all know that there was a time when we was growing up where being able to read and write and do basic mathematics was taken for granted.
Right. Yeah.
Everybody knew how to read and write. Remember when we used to have gifted classes?
Yeah.
It was, listen, if you knew how to read, write, and do mathematics, you were normal.
Right.
You had to basically wow the school and the education system to get into the gifted classes. But now all of a sudden, 20, 30 years later, Black kids don't know how to read.
Isn't that
Shout
crazy?
out to the United States government, because they worked hard.
And guys, that goes back to what Crimson talked about, the lost values. We lost the values that were important to us years ago. We lost the value of faith. We lost the value of family. We lost the values of respect. We lost the values of hard work. And some of it, guys, is due to liberal indoctrination. And some of it is due to what some theologians call it sin. And we won't talk about that, but we all are guilty of it to some degree. But you'll never see a vibrant Black community because it's too many intricacies And the system is too nuanced and complex. There's not a one solution. But we know that the greatest solution is to start at home. Charity starts at home and goes abroad. We can start by women respecting their bodies, men having penis discipline, and women being taught to honor and respect the men in their lives. And then the men being taught not to exploit their women. But sadly, that generation, that time has passed. What we saw in our generations won't happen again until the current system de-evolve and evolve to a newer system. It's not going to happen in this lifetime because it's not consistent with the science or the trainings that I've had.
Let's go.
Wow. Let's finish this. This is just amazing, man.
Repeat, only 10% of 8th grade Black boys in the U.S. are proficient in reading. In urban areas like Chicago and Detroit, that number is even lower. By contrast, the 2013 National Assessment of Education Progress found that 46% of white students are adequate readers by 8th grade, and 17% of Black students as a whole are too. The achievement gap between the two races is startling, but the difference between the NAEP report on Black students as a whole and the stats on Black boys alone is troubling too. This is where that important dissection between at-risk groups needs to take place. It is not simply Black children in general who appear to be failing in the basics, like literacy. It is the boys. Now, there are many programs in schools that are equipped to handle this, but these programs typically run from kindergarten to 2nd grade. Once you pass 2nd grade, those boys are pretty much on their own. There are about 8 million African-American students in the U.S. schools today. K to 2nd literacy initiatives can only help about a quarter of them. Those remaining, roughly 5 million students, nearly 80% of the 3rd to 12th graders not reading proficiently will be left behind to fend for themselves. Now, the statistics behind how damaging it is for our boys to have such a low literacy rate are staggering when it carries over to how it impacts the criminal justice system. This is covered in an article on thelibraryjournal.com in which it states that the U.S. Department of Justice has data showing that 75% of state prison inmates are either classified as low literate or did not complete high school.
And that's true, guys. I taught school. I have multiple degrees. I have 3. I worked in law enforcement. I worked in law enforcement as a CO. I worked with adjudicated youth. I was a mental health CO. I served young Black men for 5 years, teaching them in special education, being an advocate for those men. It's called the school to prison pipeline. We look at the scores of these boys and determine based on their normacy or normacy scores, the ones that are more at risk for going to prison. And some of these boys have been targeted. Some of these boys have been discriminated against. But the biggest factor, guys, is broken homes, these reckless women with their wombs getting with ain't-ish men, and the children are the ones that suffer the most.
The Literacy Project Foundation, a lot of people in prison can't read, and 85% of youth offenders struggle to read.
Wow. Black boys falling way behind in education, man. And this is serious. We're going to talk about that in a second. Noam King, appreciate you for sponsoring the show, dear sir. Let me hit you with this Sunday morning two-step in church as well. Here we go. Yes, sir. Church. Noam King says, Black boys trail girls in academics also due to the fact that the teaching style of public school is geared toward females and not young boys.
That's true.
Young boys are meant to be active, not sit still in a chair for hours at a time. It is not coincidental. And yeah, boys learn probably better by doing things than just sitting there listening to curriculum. From being a former educator, Oheen, what is your thoughts on what Noam King just said, being a former educator, sir?
I think that because you can in school you get everything, right? Or at least you're supposed to. You're supposed to get the time to be active. You get your recess, you get your gym, you get all of that, right? and then you get the portion where you're supposed to be able to control yourself. So it's not like boys are supposed to be playing 24/7. You know, they have to learn some discipline at some point.
True.
But I think what is going on is that young black kids and black men are specifically being targeted for extinction, right? We are absolutely at the bottom in everything by design. And like I said, when I was a kid, I learned curse.
Yes, Oheen is right. It is by design. Listen, there was a time the black community was very progressive. They saw the progress. They saw our brilliance. But sadly, many of our women went to school and got indoctrinated. And now what we once started in the past is slowly but surely fallen by the wayside. And it's unfortunate.
Writing or script, however you know it. I had white teachers, and their whole thing was, yo, you're not going to embarrass me. We learned everything, you know, and like I said, I was average in school, but we had a bunch of gifted kids who was above our level. We had AP writing. We had all of these different things to, and I think what happened was, even in the 80s, because as you know, when you go into school, kindergarten, and first grade and second grade is designed to teach you how to read. Third grade on, you read to learn, right? So those first 3 grades, you learn how to read, you take that test, and from that point on, you read to learn. And what happened was, I think a lot of melanated children basically destroyed those citywide tests. Y'all remember those citywide tests, right?
I remember those.
I think a lot of black kids destroyed those citywide tests, and I think that these governments started to realize these black bastards are going to be, basically fighting with our children to get into these colleges. Into crack cocaine, into all of these things that destroyed the community, and here we are today. But how did we go, like I said, how we go from 20 years, 30 years to black people? Because remember, even our rap music was educated. We had, Brand Nubian, we had Clan, we had, Public Enemy, we had all of these different rap groups that spoke about education. You know, you had Chubb Rock and them doing their videos in colleges and basically making us wanting to go to college. So how did we go from that to all of a sudden black boys can't read? This was government engineered, and they spent trillions of dollars to make this happen.
Right. You know, I'll add to Oheen. Shout out to the guys, Black Man, that sent me cash outs. Andrew Baker, Bobby Bowman, and Maurice Martin. I appreciate it. And but yeah, so I taught school too. I've done a lot of things. Law enforcement, first degree was in law enforcement. I worked as a CO for 2 years, mental health correction officer. Did 7 years Department of Juvenile Justice, and then I was a special ed teacher for 5 years. So we call it the similar work I did in graduate school was called the school to prison pipeline. This whole thing is multi-layered. And Oheen is right. Boys tend to learn better in environments. We call it the kinesthetic learning, where they're actually working. But I'm going to challenge that and make it make sense. Even though I think boys learn better being kinesthetic learners, meaning that, learning in motion. Let's go back 40 or 50 years ago when they were required to sit down and be disciplined. The biggest thing that you see now, man, is the absence of fathers and the destruction of what was the pillar of our moral reasoning and our moral compass. The black church. The black church was the pillar of moral compass. It has been so denigrated from where it was at, because I grew up in church, and even though I don't live it like I used to, I do believe in the truth. I believe in the teachings of Christ, but I don't live it like I used to. But there was a succinct difference, Black Ram, when we were under the umbrella or the auspices of faith, where fathers were in the home, where women knew their roles. But it seemed like around the 60s and the 70s, I would argue, Black Ram, even though we know that there's always been 304s, I would argue, especially in the South, now, I never lived up north, that black women were some of the blessed women in the world, in my opinion. That's my subjective opinion. But what you see now is you have racist teachers that don't understand boys. You have some of the black women a lot of times that they don't really know how to reach our boys. And sometimes, Black Ram, it's an unconscious pathology of hate. Most teachers are white females, and they really don't understand the cultural dynamics of black boys. And so they take that hyperness as being aggressive. So what they do, they target black kids at a high rate. So they target black kids and Hispanic boys, white boys on the end. But black boys get targeted the most. And now, let me tell you what I saw when I was in school. I'm 6'5", 6'6". So, they always wanted me to do the ninja work, or you just to be the damn enforcer. I said, listen, I ain't go to school to be no damn enforcer. I went to school to apply my mind. And so it got me in trouble. So when I tried to utilize things, Black Ram, that was conducive to helping these boys become better, they began to attack me because they were jealous of me. I had teachers and principals tell me, you're very erudite, you're very intelligent, which was an insult. And I had principals trying to set me up because they were intimidated not only by my size and stature, but they were intimidated by my intellect. And so I knew back in 2009, I said, I got to get outside the education system and do something that's going to help these boys become better. And, and I became, and I went to graduate school at UNC and became a therapist because they're not ready for masculine Black men. When Black men really realize what their power is, we are an unstoppable force. Absolutely. And they see it, but they don't want you to see it. And I used to tell them all the time, I'm like Felice Johnson. I'm a warrior. I'm a Leo too, but I'm like Felice Johnson. I'm a warrior. You can't stop me because they've tried to stop me for years. Systems, I've lost jobs. I've been through a lot of trauma myself, but still I rise. I rise because in my mind, Black Ram, when I apply myself, I don't feel like nobody can see me when I apply myself. And I stand on that. So yeah, so it's multifaceted. It's many layers. But a lot of it, I think, when you take away the spiritual element, the theology says, Black Ram, unless God builds the house, the labor builds it in vain. And then I'm gonna tell you something else too, Black Ram. In the clinical world, it's a concept called systems theory. See, Black Ram and Oheen, the Black woman in America, see herself outside of the collective of the whole Black community. And so system theory posits this, that the part is not greater than the whole. The part is not greater than the whole. But see, the modern Black woman thinks that her part is greater than the whole collective. That's why when they vote, they don't vote Black community, Black man, Black woman, Black children, Black family. They vote pro-Black woman first, and then everybody else. And so when they're in crisis, now they want you to come back like with this just hilarious mess and this transgender mess. Now they want Black men to come back and damn protect them. I'm not going to protect them. Because you didn't give a damn about Black men during this last election. You didn't vote for policies. They didn't vote for policies, Black Ram and Oheen, that were sustainable for the Black collective. They voted for themselves. Exactly. And it's time for Black men to vote for themselves and damn do what's best for them.
Exactly. They see themselves as separate entities from us. Yes, and this is one thing that Black men have been asleep on for the longest as a collective, that she doesn't see herself as part of the whole. Right. And she sees herself as distinct from you, a distinct political group, ideas, thoughts, belief systems, all of those things are separate.
And many do, guys. Many do see themselves. Shout out to the good sisters that do stay in line, but they see themselves as a distinct group away from Black men. And you would be a damn fool to talk about going back trying to protect something that don't respect you or honor you as a man. You can't protect what you don't control. You can't protect what doesn't honor you because you are rewarding bad behavior. You are rewarding bad behavior. You are rewarding bad behavior. The last election proved it. Many did not vote for policy. They voted for selfishness. They voted for chucks and pearls. And they voted for a woman to be a vice president based on symbolism, but not based on what was best for Black men, Black children, Black boys, and Black girls, and the Black family. And now with all this mess going on, they want you to damn come back and protect them. And I say you can't protect them. You have to protect yourself. And you protect yourself by saving yourself.
Separate from you. And when she speaks about Blackness, it doesn't include you whatsoever.
It doesn't include you, right.
SOE Boom, appreciate the super sticker, dear sir. Thank you for that. Luke Conyers says, this is done on purpose. They want you to be nothing more than slaves. You was a white male slave, then you can be mine. Listen to their channel, the B-Dub, that worships the dark mother. And this is what it's coming to, exactly. More of a dark matriarchal system is what they're trying to push forward. Appreciate you, brother Luke Conyers. Thank you for saying that. MPI says, remember Team Summit on BET? I wanted to go to college and play as a frat because of that. Yeah, I remember it was a whole move in the 90s about going to college.
Shout out to my man Tim Howell for the 5. He said, this is legendary. Nice conversation. TKC, Black Ramp, and Oheen. Thank you, Tim Howard. I appreciate it, man. And Tim Howard, because you get it, Teddy Pendergrass told me to tell the Black woman she can't hide from herself. Thank you, sir. And they are reaping what they sow, guys. Sadly, many are reaping what they've sown, and it's a destruction of the black community.
But you know what? All of a sudden, it stopped just like that.
Right.
Remember school days. Remember what was the Cosby Show? Different World.
Yeah.
Now everybody loved a different world, right? Now listen, I'm gonna be honest with you, bro. I'm gonna be honest with you. I wasn't thinking about college until I saw a different world.
Yes, sir. Right.
I thought that was something for white folk, man. But when I saw people in a collegiate, black folks, men and women in a collegiate atmosphere, I was like, oh, okay, that actually might be something to look forward to. Think about what that did to your psyche to actually see young African Americans that represented you in college and doing these things. But now the pipeline is not to college, it's to jail, to the penitentiary. So MPI, that is a great point, man, because that really helped us out a lot. And that's just the power of media. It's something we can't deny. I wish it wasn't as powerful, fellas, but it's something we can't deny. Like you said, Oheen, when we was listening to Brand Nubian and X-Clan and Public Enemy, that was a whole different vibe. When we were talking about Lisa Bonet and Whitley and stuff on the TV shows. And then we got all of those movies, Higher Learning and all of that, all of those movies surrounding being in college. And that helped us. And then we thought to find out what fraternities and sororities are and say, okay, this might be fun, whether you agree with them or not. So that promoted a lot of us to say, you know what, maybe we should go to college because, hey, we can get grants and financial aid and it looked like it might be fun. Although you got to go to class, it looked like it's more independence and freedom, a chance to get away and grow and develop. But where is that move nowadays? You hardly ever see it. Kano with the super sticker. I think that's how you say your name. Thank you, dear sir, for the super sticker. Appreciate that. And Gerald Jelk says, Ram, remember that 99% of all inventions, the melanated man, we are attacked while we are in the womb. Chickens coming home to roost.
They're coming home to roost. Yes, sir. They're coming home to roost. They'll definitely.
So we only have a few more minutes left in the show. Black males go through a lot of trauma, man. What are some of the things you think, Brother Kosher, that can be done to kind of mitigate some of this trauma? Because listen, not only do we go through it as young boys, but we take that into adulthood as well. And my ultimate question to you, Brother Kosher, because this is a series about black male trauma. Do you think that many of us can benefit from therapy and professional counseling services? Talk to us about that.
Yeah. It can. And I'm glad you asked this question. I got a roll. And Black Ram, with your permission, I would love to take this clip, this show we did, part of it, and use it for a future show. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
So can therapy help black men? Yes. But it depends on the therapist, one, the age, two, and then number three, if he's a therapist that can think outside of liberal ideologies and the liberal collective. If that therapist can do that, then that man got a chance. The problem is you don't see enough black male therapists that are masculine that can think critically, but think from an individualized perspective. Because the things they taught us in school has been substantiated by research. We call it collaborative empiricism is one of them when you collaborate, but it's based on empiricism, which is science. So therapy is very efficacious, which basically means it can be very efficient. But here's the problem with therapy, Black Ram. There's a science of therapy, and then there's an art of therapy. Just like in teaching, you know what I'm talking about. There's a science of teaching, but then there's an art of teaching. Everybody can't disseminate it appropriately. Everybody don't have the personality to disseminate it appropriately. And then a lot of times people that go to therapy, they don't have the discipline to push through therapy. The therapist is just a conduit. The therapist is not the magical Negro. You got to do the work. Yeah, you got to do the work, man, but they don't want to do the work. So therapist power. I'll say this in humility. Some of my clients have seen me, and I'm not being arrogant. They told me you're the best therapist I've ever had in my life. They all tell me that consistently. And I'm on a trek to probably start my own private practice because I work do companies now, but I think I'm going to start working for myself because, we need to hear the voices of black men. And I'm going to tell you something, Black men, these programs that you are doing, the programs that I do, what Oheen is doing, These programs are saving lives, man. I call this cyber group therapy. You know, on the show that I sent you, I put the tag. It's therapeutic, man, and I got that from you. And you're correct. It's called cyber group therapy, and it's based on Irvin Yalom's 12 principles of group therapy, which is catharsis, comparing the evidence, installation of hope, corrective recapitulation, and so many others. So I would say first they got to acknowledge that they have a problem. That's number one. Two, once they acknowledge the problem, they need to find the most competent therapist, because sometimes you go through a list of different therapists, because every therapist is not a match, and then go from there. But can therapy be vital? Yes. All therapists are not competent. Many therapists see things through the feminist theory lens. Yes. Some therapists have mental illnesses themselves, Black Ram. Yes. And some became therapists to more or less appease their narcissistic supply. Some therapists are narcissists. They became therapists to understand their pathology, but once they became therapists, they use their clients as a way to feed their narcissistic supply.
Wow. That is a great point. I dealt with a B-dub recently who was a therapist, man, and man, Nutty didn't pay them. I have to tell you about it. Well, that brings us to the end of the show. I know you got to go, Coach. I can't believe that we are over 2 hours already.
It was good. It was good, man. Real good, man. Excellent.
Wait. You gonna leave us hanging on that? You told us you was dealing with a B-dub that was a therapist. You just gonna leave us hanging there?
I'll tell the story there. I know Coach got to go. But I met this chick on Bumble, man, and everything was going well. In fact, her and I even went out of town together, man. And one of the first things she told me is that she does a lot of self-sabotaging in relationships. So that was like a red flag, but she was able to talk through it. So I'm like, okay, well, this is a good sign. She's able to talk through the fact that even if a relationship is going good, she, has a tendency to run. And we talked more and more, and she got to, she used her therapy skills, got me to talking about some of my traumas from growing up in a bad neighborhood, experiencing the violence and all of the murders and all the things that I had to go through. And she gave me this test. It was some type of test to assess my childhood trauma. And then she gave me the assessment, just as, just something to do. And, she came back with all this feedback, like, yeah, this is the problem, this is the problem, this is the problem. Basically, in your life, you've been pretty abused in your life by different people at different times and different facets and everything. But everything was chill, right? Man, one day we got to talking about cryptocurrency.
Uh-oh. Yeah, I remember you told me
that. I didn't tell you about that, Coach. We got to talk about cryptocurrency. I didn't get a chance to tell Oheen. Right. And she was telling me, she snapped out on me, This wasn't the first time. This was the last time. I'll tell you the first time in a second. So long story short, she said, why are you investing in cryptocurrency? You should have a financial advisor. You don't know what you're doing. You're going to make a mess of yourself. You're going to end up messing up like the last time. And I'm thinking, what last time? Chick, I just messed up. My credit score is 820. What the fuck are you talking about? Right. So I'm thinking she put her husband in there with me, bro. I ain't no bullshit. Right. My credit score 820, sweetheart. I don't know what the fuck you talking about. So she went in. But here's the thing: she really got angry and upset. And I told her that we were talking. I was telling America's on the verge of collapse and a new financial system. And I mean, she went in. The first time she went in on me was when I told her that I didn't vote for Trump or Biden. That I voted for a third-party candidate, and she was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And she wanted to leave me alone for that.
Yeah, guys, and some of them see you as dumb and stupid. Some of them see you as dumb and unlearned, quote unquote.
And you stupid, and not voting for Biden is a vote for Trump, even if you voted for a third. I'm like, what the hell?
They're crazy, man.
Bro, she just snapped out. But here's the thing: it was not what she said. But how she was saying it, she was real aggressive and angry. Right. And you would think somebody like just robbed her. I'm like, I never seen some sort of this type of aggression. And I think that she didn't call me stupid, but she was very condescending. But I never seen such aggression on the side of a female on something like about politics or investing. I'm like, wow, this is way too serious for you. And then shortly after that, I ended the relationship, man. I said, I can't deal with this. And she was a therapist with her own business. She didn't work for anybody. Making a lot of money, very well off as a therapist.
Right.
But nutty as a payday. Yeah. What do I expect to find on Bumble? And listen, man, when she snapped out on me, we were in public, and I'm like, I'm glad. But I've been through a lot in my life. It's not easy for somebody to make me feel uncomfortable. Right. But that chick, man, she made me feel really uncomfortable. And not talking to her anymore made me feel really good. Like I can't fuck with this. And I pity the fool. Any guy who fuck with a chick like that, bro. And let me tell you something real quick. I'm gonna say this real quick. Here's the kicker. Here's the kicker right here, bro. She was recently divorced from a man she had been with for 18 years, has 3 children with, right? But here's the worst part. The reason why she got divorced is because she got preggo by another guy who she was in a relationship with that guy's wifey as well.
So she was a sandwich.
Yeah. Not with her husband, with somebody else, and that destroyed her relationship.
So,
but she's giving other people advice.
Yeah,
Right,
like so.
right.
So she was cheating. So you're not qualified to tell people what they should do because you basically make bad decisions. So
great point.
Wow. That's
Well, I'll say this. Therapists should always consult with other therapists to make sure they deal with what's called dark spots. Dark spots, Oheen and Black Ram's title was called shallow work. I always tell people doctors need doctors, pastors need prayer, and therapists need other therapists. A therapist can be a skilled, competent professional and still help other people, but they still gonna have some pathologies they need to work on themselves.
Right.
Now, in a perfect world, you're right, Oheen, they should deal with their own idiosyncrasies before they talk with others. But there are therapists that can operate outside their own idiosyncrasies and still help people. But I will say this. The liberal indoctrination of Oheen and Black Ram is so powerful, man. It is so powerful. I can see them coming from a damn mile away, man. I'm almost like a mongoose, I'm very instinctive and I can feel it. I listen to buzzwords and the fact that they were more concerned about a man instead of the policies speaks to the ignorance of so many of these women. And, I got a show tonight, guys. I'm going to have a Filipino woman coming on, and we're going to talk about why Philippine women make good wives. She's coming on tonight. She has associated with the Philippine piece. So guys, drop. It's gonna be a fire show tonight, and we're gonna kill it. But I'm not surprised Oheen and Black Ram are women like that. Many of these women that go to these liberal schools and go to school in general, they cannot think outside of their pedagogy. They can't think outside of their pedagogy. I call them rail thinkers. And a rail thinker is a person that think on the rail. Like when Oheen and I taught school, there was a pedagogy. When I taught, it was called the North Carolina Standard Course of Study. But it changed from that to call Common Core. So Common Core is more universal. The Standard Course of Study was more state-based. States had the right to teach and disseminate information and what they deemed was necessary for their own state and for their own province. But many cannot think outside the rail. So when I was in school, many were trying to copy me. Many were intimidated. The principals were intimidated. I had teachers and principals tell me I use big words. I'm like, how the hell? I'm using big words. We all educated. Give me a big word. Right. And it was weird to me, but it just confirmed my point. They want to be better than you, many of them. They fear an intellectual, masculine, dominant Black man. I consider myself very rare. It's men like me, but it's not a lot of brothers like me, man. And because they're not used to it. And so when they see it, they become intimidated. And if you don't bow, then they'll try to get rid of you. Because I call myself a lion. Most hyenas won't mess with me one-on-one. But because they know I'll destroy them. But they form coalitions and groups to try to get with me. And then once they do that, of course, you can't beat damn 20 hyenas one lion. Even I don't care if you're an alpha lion. An alpha lion can't beat 20 hyenas one-on-one, by himself.
You can't beat 20 hyenas. You can't beat 20 hyenas, man. They come out to me in the past, dog. But you try me one-on-one, I'll destroy you. Yeah. You can't beat them, man.
But he can with a couple other male lions in this circle. And that's why what we are doing on YouTube is so powerful. Now, we don't know how long it's going to be before they stop us from speaking, but these programs are powerful. Black Ram, Oheen, you guys will be surprised the number of Black men that I've been able to help. So many brothers and men, your shows have saved my life because it's cyber group therapy. It's not formal, it's informal. It's informal cyber therapy where men come together, they coalesce, they share their stories, their pain, they're looking for hope, they're trying to find commonality. And I call it, Black Ram, the universality of brotherhood, where we all have a universal struggle and a universal pain. And that's misandry, lack of cooperation from our women, disrespect, and we're all trying to find hope. And like what Oheen is doing by traveling abroad, going to cultures where the women are feminine. Because I'm telling you, man, when you get around a feminine woman, I call it a feminine oscillator, it will change your life. A true feminine woman is like taking an elixir. It changes the chemistry in your head, man, because trauma blocks the neural pathways in the brain. And so we use a technique called EMDR, and that blocks those neural pathways from trauma, which allows the brain to proliferate. And that's why.
All right, guys, enough of that. We're going to end this stream. Shout out to everyone that's tuned in on tonight. Shout out to everyone. Shout out to everyone. Of course, you guys know. It's Leo season. Shout out to Sir Hill and Chantel Simone. It's Leo season, guys, and it's time to hear the roar of the lion, man. Well, listen, guys, thank you for tuning in. We got a good show on tomorrow, man. Y'all gonna love this one. Y'all gonna love this one because we're gonna be talking about the making of Fleece Johnson, the mind associated with Fleece Johnson. Fleece Johnson is the bully warrior. He said, I'm a warrior. And until guys, modern women and modern men understand what their trauma is, consistent with Teddy Pendergrass, guys, they'll continue to look for answers until they stop hiding from themselves and face the issues that they are dealing with and understand that sometimes there's a consequence for their bad behavior, guys. We're signing off. Thank you guys for tuning in.
From the very beginning, we envisioned this event to be a beacon of growth and transformation, the Black Manosphere Conclave. Across 3 days, Black men will converge to retool themselves for the 21st century. We'll forge powerful business alliances, refine styles, amplify tech skills, and exchange life lessons unique to the Black male experience. Motivate, evolve, enlighten, and thrive. This, gentlemen, is the Black Manosphere Conclave. Welcome to the elite.
Love Black women. I love decent, hardworking, God-fearing Black women who support their families.
Yes, sir.
I don't like degenerate, lying, false testify-giving women who put their man on child support, even though he's been paying for you, and then turn around and lie to the court and say you're a deadbeat daddy, and who alienate their children from their father. I don't like those type of women, and I will call them to the mat each and every time for their lies and their disparaging statements about Black men, largely because what? That's what a father does. See, my sons turn 18, they will inherit the mantle of Black men.
Right.
And all the negativity and the tropes that go with it. And it's not fair for my children, for my babies, to inherit that trope because they didn't do anything. They're innocent. As I said earlier.
Fire! Kosherclinician.
If it ain't seven, it ain't kosher. Heaven and hell, that's what they told you. Real men put the strap down and we can toss them. Young heads picking back up and young dolphins. This is our culture. Now we talking kosher. Clinician, masculinity issues, absent fathers who miss you, mama drama don't kiss you, all a part of the ritual, this is how they get you, separate the men, women clipping babies pretend to, damn, lovers, haters acting like vultures, if it ain't seven, it ain't kosher, if it ain't kosher, ain't right, gotta divorce us, if it ain't seven, it ain't kosher, if it ain't kosher, ain't right, gotta divorce us, if it ain't seven, it ain't kosher, if it ain't kosher, ain't right, gotta divorce us. This is kosherclinician. 7 wonders, the whole world gotta listen. This is kosherclinician. 7 wonders, the whole world gotta listen. This is kosherclinician. 7 wonders, the whole world gotta listen. kosherclinician. 7 wonders the whole world gotta listen. Listen.
All right, guys, we're signing off. We're going to keep fighting. We ain't going to quit. But, guys, you can't change what you don't acknowledge. You cannot change your behavior until you acknowledge the pain of the past and until the people that impacted you in the negative way take ownership, guys, for their bad behavior, guys. We're signing off. Tune in on tomorrow. We're going to have another great show on tomorrow, guys. Be well.
Friends go, it was simple. When the end's low, switch the tempo. When my friends go, it was simple. When the end's low, switch the tempo. I got right, I got heart, I don't die, I'ma fight. I go down, bet I strike. I go hard day and night, yeah. I go hard day and night, 1 to 1, no surprise. See the hate in their eyes. My brother's blood money bleed. I got the game in the squeeze. What would you do for some green? What would you do for some blues? Go pick and choose, a family of cheese. Some people not built like that. Some people get killed like that. Pressure like water, lights, mortgage. I've been at bills like that. Now I got kids like that. No wonder why I feel like that. Some people go to war for nothing. Me, I go to war for some. Some people need knives and guns. Same ones just talk and run. Some people go to war for none. Me, I go to war for some. Some people need knives and guns. Same ones just talk and run. When my friends go, it was simple. When the end's low, switch the tempo. I got right, I got heart, I won't die, I'ma fight. I go down, bet I strike. I go hard day and night. Money on the line, keep calling. Money on the books, ain't all that. My kids, they'll be ballin'. Got a real bankroll, not for Instagram. My mama on the line, keep calling. Praying for me, know I need all that. Told me it's not about ballin'. Real blessed, but I'm still sinning, man. What would you do for a win? What would you do for your friends? What if this life is a foe? What if it all is pretend? What if you roll to the end? What if you started again? This is real life, not a game. I fight my battles to win. But some people go to war for none. Me, I go to war for some. Some people need knives and guns. Same ones just talk and run. Some people go to war for none. Me, I go to war for some. Some people need knives and guns. Same ones just talk and run. When my friends go, it was simple. When the end's low, switch the tempo. I got right, I got heart, I won't die, I'ma fight. I go down, bet I strike. I go hard day and night.
Fire for your mind. The Kosher Clinician. Fire for your mind. The Kosher Clinician.